elections on October 29th that the opposition and foreign observers describe as fraudulent. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan retained the presidency with 98% of the vote, but the main opposition candidates were either jailed or disqualified. And this also follows the planned demonstrations that had to happen during yesterday's Independence Day celebrations. Here, some of the pictures from Dar es Salaam and across Tanzania.
Taarifa hizo sio sahihi. Wanatumia picha mjongeo na picha mnato za matukio ya nyuma kama vile ya tarehe 29, tarehe 30 na tarehe 31 mwezi wa 10, 2025.
So when they come together to oppress, do we have an option but to stand together to push back?
Elections has become a cancerous issue in East Africa, from Tanzania, and now we're going to Uganda in January, and back to Kenya in 2027.
Tanzania imekuwa kama Gaza. Hii sio Tanzania tunayojua. Tunataka tuwe na amani na uhuru. Tunataka katiba mpya, tunataka walioko magerezani waachiliwe.
Opposition accuses Iebc of bias, vows to challenge Mbeere North Malava poll results. And the United Opposition is now accusing the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Iebc, of being a puppet of the state, warning the commission against overseeing shambolic elections in 2027. Now, the leaders who gathered in Itanga village in Murang'a County on Tuesday for the burial of the late Herbert Karidhi Macharia claim that the recent by-elections exposed the relationship between the government and the Iebc. They accused it of being an extension of the state and questioned its transparency in preparing for the 2027 general election, vowing to challenge the outcome of the Malava and Mbeere North parliamentary by-elections, which they claimed were fraudulent. Here are details to the story.
Iebc, we know as it is a Ruto commission. We tell them we are going even for private prosecution because yale yalifanyika hapa Mbeere na Malava criminal, because we know Ruto cannot prosecute Ethicon. Ruto cannot prosecute the CEO anaitwa Marijan. Yale yanaendelea kule tutayaziba. It is not possible to divide the United Opposition. What is binding us together is really not political rhetoric. It is the love of this nation.
There is a very deliberate scheme by the Ruto regime to split the United Opposition. Na tumeona haya wakati tumekuwa Bondo juzi, kuna kiongozi mmoja anasema hatuna shida na Kalonzo ama Wamalwa, lakini tuna shida na rafiki wako mmoja. Na sisi tukajua wanaongea juu ya rafiki wetu Rigiji.
Nobody ataingilia familia yetu ya Wakamba na watu ya Mlima. We are one thing. Hii kura ya Mlima itaenda kikapu moja. One. Kama kuna mtu atataka kusimamisha hapa Murang'a, atapata kura 15,000. Si ndio? Akisimamisha mtu hapa Kirinyaga apata 8,000. Akisimamisha mwingine, ile watu yote Ruto watasimamisha, tukijumisha hao tutawapatia 50,000.
And away from that now to KNCHR condemns lack of transparency in recent by-elections, reports 57 deaths. And the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has condemned what it terms a blatant lack of transparency in the recent by-elections. The commission says the polls were not free and fair, raising serious questions about the credibility of the results. KNCHR documented 3 deaths linked to election-related violence, with its new report saying the by-elections fell far short of transparency. And KNCHR says the process was marred by widespread irregularities, including the use of hired goons, involvement of government officials, open bribery, and intimidation. The commission documented 3 deaths linked to the election violence. Here are the full details. to this story.
The Commission monitored these by-elections, and they were kept out of 2 tallying centers, Chicago Primary School in Mbeere North and Mumboni North Ward. They were kept out of those tallying centers, and therefore we cannot make a decision on whether the elections were free and fair because we were denied entry.
So 2 of them were from Kasipul, Kabondo, during the by-elections. There was a 70-year-old in a stampede in Kabuchai. So those are the 3 deaths that we've been able to document. The Commission documented 57 violations on the right to life. And the period under review saw an affront to this right, especially between the months of June and July during civic unrests. The Commission also calls on IPOA, that's the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority, to expedite investigations into enforced disappearances, torture, and the deaths of citizens in custody, and recommend charges against officers accused of extrajudicial killings.
And away from that, now to President William Ruto says that National Infrastructure Fund to be unveiled this week. And the National Infrastructure Fund will be unveiled this week, President William Ruto has announced. The president said that the fund will help mobilize resources for the country's much-needed infrastructure development. He pointed out that the proposed fund is designed to attract up to 6 times more financing from the private sector.
The National Infrastructure Fund will be ready this week. I know I announced to the people of Kenya that we are creating a National Infrastructure Fund where we are going to mobilize resources from the budget, from proceeds of privatization, from royalties, and use it to attract more money. In fact, 3, 4, 5, 6 times more from the private sector.
And we know that as they try to sell this parastatal without public participation, which is a constitutional requirement, it is simply because somebody somewhere wants a cut.
It's like you have a cow that is high yielder in your home. Hiyo ng'ombe ndio inatoa maziwa, watoto wanakunywa, wewe unakunywa, ingine unauza. Sasa wewe unauza hiyo ng'ombe na una ingine, ati ununue chakula ya siku hiyo.
15% was reasonable for us because we also need seed capital to put into the National Infrastructure Fund. And we've realized that 15% is raising us over 200 billion shillings to put into that fund. Collectively with other fundraising measures, we will hit our target because the strategy of the government of Kenya is to have at least 600 billion into that fund.
From that, we come to the end of the news that are making headlines in the country. When we come back from the break, we're coming back with the dailies. Keep it science and be back shortly.